Welcome to Mindful Trinity. I'm your host Vaishnavi Charan, and today we're going to be joined by a very special guest. Is a consummate scholar of international topics. He has authored over 35 publications in international peer-reviewed journals and integrated applied management or decision sciences in proffering solutions to leadership and management issues. He presented a major international conference across the globe on a regular basis. He also frequently travels to educate diverse audience on the values of love, peace, unity in diversity, social justice, and positive change, community development, conflict resolution, and organizational leadership. To Dr. Vasudev Das. If you, okay.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here to shed some light on my professional and academic views on the very concept of change and accepting change. Change is a big issue in the academics, especially in my discipline, where I major leadership and organizational change. So people and organizations are constantly undergoing change.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you so much. So before we actually start with our discussion, I want to mention a little disclaimer on behalf of Mindful Trinity, which is the company that I'm representing. So the opinions, views, and beliefs expressed are those of our guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Mindful Trinity or the policies of the company thereof. The content of the show does not constitute any legal or medical advice and is provided for the general insight and guidance. If you require specific legal, medical, or any professional advice, you should contact a specialist or a qualified practitioner. Also, please note, Mindful Trinity is a non-religious, non-sectarian organization, and we are not affiliated to any religious organization. And again, we are so grateful that you took some time off from your busy Saturday just to join us, to learn with us, to basically advance, heal, and grow from whatever we all are experiencing in life. So once again, welcome, and hopefully you find this discussion very insightful. So Dr. Vasudev, to accept it.
It's an interesting question. It is very difficult to accept change for the average human being, but the bottom line is that if you want to be an exceptional achiever, you should understand that this world is constantly undergoing changes. And the reason why it is difficult is that it's difficult for us to accept change is that we are comfortable with the status quo. In organizations, if even you have the best of initiatives and you want to initiate a change, a positive social change, people generally will resist. And that is why the very implementation of change is resisted at all levels in organizations, and even with our own personal undoings, it is difficult for us to accept change. Look at the whole situation where, say for instance, we are bound to get old, but we resist. We try to resist that change.
Sure.
We try to resist that change by all means. And therefore, even in medical science, there are cosmetics and other processes where you can try to resist the change of old age. The reason why we resist the change is that accept or delving into an unknown, it is something very dangerous because we don't know the unknown. If it is something that we are aware of, what we are going to gain from it, if we have had the experience, but something we have not had the experience, and someone is requesting you or suggesting that you should just align with it, except he convinces you or she convinces you with, cogent reasons, practical and theory, to be able to substantiate the proposition. And so the bottom line is that we resist change. One of the major reasons is that we don't have the ability to adjust. And because we don't have the ability to adjust, we want the whole world to adjust themselves to suit our purpose. Maladjustment is one of the major problems that is counterproductive to change. The average human being is maladjusted. And therefore, we want the whole world, people around us, to adjust themselves to suit our purpose. If even we find someone within our family, we lost someone, we just think, no, it never happened. How could that happen?
Yeah.
And so it is a difficult thing. It's really a challenging concept, and in practice and in theory.
Yeah. So
But,
do you think fear actually plays a role in us accepting change or not accepting change?
Mentioned that tacitly. We are maladjusted, and because we don't know what is ahead of us. We don't want to accept, we don't want to delve into it. So that is the concept of that negative emotion called fear. Yeah.
Okay.
We are afraid of embracing change. We don't know the outcome.
So what
Delving
advice?
into the note. Imagine when someone just drives, someone you don't know just drives into your compound and picks and points to you. Hey, let's go for a party. You don't know this person. Naturally, you will resist. That fear is there. I don't know what is going to happen.
Sure.
So yeah.
Okay. So
fear is behind the scenario.
Okay. So, well, how can the mind be trained to accept change? I'm sure the mind will have a role to play in this whole scenario.
Yeah. The mind has a big role to play, and the maladjusted mind is a major predicament to acceptance of change. Whereas a person who is adjustable, adjustability means we have a change of paradigm, and that has to do with the mind. We just adjust our mindsets to be able to align with a particular situation that we may not even feel comfortable with. That we are confident, and so we have a higher understanding of what the result is going to be, and because we have that control over our mind, the mind becomes our friend, and we can tame the mind by some definitive methodologies. And so, yeah, the mind plays a definite role, a major role in transforming our change and in recreating our future. So yeah, the mind has a role to play in the very concept of change.
Okay. Certain things like death is there, it's going to happen. Like the past year has been teaching us more often than what it taught us in the past. So something like that, just an example, how can we accept circumstances that we cannot change?
Yeah, if I understand it properly, you ask him, how can we accept a change in a very favorable way. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
The things we can't change, so we just resist forever, or we should adjust. We are actually doing that. For instance, we are able to defeat old age. I bring that concept again. And when it comes, we embrace it. So other things also, the things we cannot control, we should just let it happen naturally. Because the energy we put in trying to resist what we can't eventually resist is a waste of time. It drains us.
How long does it take to change oneself? Is it healthy to put timelines in place?
Yeah. Some people could change themselves within a moment. They have a high or intense ability to be able to control their emotions. They have high emotional intelligence. They have high self-control. And so with these positive emotions at their beacon core, they could just change overnight.
Wow.
But with some people, they could drag along for years, perhaps sometimes a whole lifetime, and they're not able to make it.
Wow. Okay. So as I know, certain people that you associate with, you tend to become just like them. So that's only what I'm actually thinking at the top of my head. What would you say?
That's true, because when, for instance, you want to be a musician and you start associating with celebrities in a particular field. And so very quickly, the talents people have radiates. The talent that's radiated is contagious. And so whomever we associate with, we imbibe their energies, we imbibe their culture. And therefore, we find that association is playing a very prominent role. In fact, in criminology, one of the theories of crime is association, you know.
Wow, yes.
If you associate with a criminal, there is high probability that you will be influenced to be part of that game. So yes, association is very important. If you want, in fact, there is a concept, or there's a witticism which says that, tell me who you associate with, and I will tell you who you are.
Wow.
So association is important. You see, chemically speaking, there is what we call osmosis. Osmosis means that you have a simple cell membrane separating two solutions. Now, the solution with a higher concentration will draw the weaker solution. That's a typical case of a scientific understanding of the concept of association. So when we associate, there are a lot of subtle exchanges that goes on. And we imbibe the culture of the people, the mindset of the people that we associate with. Whatever you want to be in this world, just look out for those who are very good in that field and start mingling with them, start associating with them. If even you don't really ask for anything, you don't ask for direction in terms of giving some ideas on how to be heighten a profile, just by associating, you benefit from that relationship.
Wow.
So yeah, association plays a very prominent role. Is one of those factors, one of those exogenous factors that helps to promote change.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think as well. How would you know whether someone is actually okay? We're trying to ignore the behavior factor, because sometimes the first thing you would see by someone's behavior, you'll know whether to associate with them or not. But sometimes people come, well, they actually show you the very good side in the beginning. So how would you know not to associate with this person? Do you have to actually go through all of the bad in order to know to not associate with them? Or will you just know? Well, yeah, I'm just trying to think.
You may not have to study a human being in total. You may start with just some acquaintances, and then you may become, if you like the person's ways, her utterances, the way around modus vivendi, then you may be able to figure out. So we don't just jump into a relationship with someone, a deep association with someone, a confidential association with someone overnight. It takes time to build that type of high-profile confidential association. And so the important factor is that we get close to someone and we'll be able to understand what those things that influence their decision-making. Those very factors that help them to become who they are. And when the more we get close, the more we'll be able to understand the person. Now, one funny thing that goes on in the 21st century is that sometimes people just meet accidentally and they see some good quality from someone, and immediately they jump into the relationship. They jump into that deep association. And sometimes even sociologically speaking, sometimes you see, they quickly make arrangements. Oh, I've met the star of my life. And, you know, I've seen cases. I've traveled all over the world. I make presentations all over the world. And I've met a number of people who, ordinarily speaking, you may look at them as, you know, maybe people who are they're not very smart. But when you really study them closely, you get close to them, you understand their makeups. And then you'll be able to make a very concrete decision about what to do, what to share with that person. I'll give you an example. You know, sometimes, you know, people jump into some deep association with someone, and, you know, without really understanding deeply that person, and they start sharing their confidential matters. And then the next moment they realize that the person takes them to the street. And in some cases, it may even result to self-harm. Because if you carry all of your stuff and sell it out to this person whom you have not studied very deeply, just because they show you some good quality, you may be making a wrong decision. Therefore, patience is a requisite in trying to determine how and what we share with people that we are associating. You start with an ordinary stuff and see whether the person keeps it. Then you could go on to share deeper stuff. Then you can go further to share most confidential stuff. Don't jump into just sharing stuff that could backfire, because humans are dynamic. We keep changing every moment of our lives. So we have to see how we are making a very meticulous evaluation of people before we make
a final decision to be able to share confidentially.
Yeah, so yeah, patience is key. We all need to learn that, especially in this day and age where we want everything instantly. So yeah, that's actually very important, patience. What I actually learned from this whole discussion, the mind plays a major role in transforming the mind and our habits as well. Fear impacts our decisions and our behavior and change. Things that we cannot have control over, we should embrace naturally and allow things to happen, such as old age, death, etc. An association has an impact on change. We imbibe the energies of those that we associate with. Patience is the key in developing relationships. So we shouldn't rush into anything. Everything takes time. Now that we came to the end of our discussion, do you have any parting thoughts to share with our audience?
Accepting one thing now. The mind's accepting one thing now and rejecting that same thing the next moment. The mind basically is the foundation of change. The mind keeps changing, and except we learn some practical strategies to be able to have control over the mind. This is a number of people don't seem to understand that we live in a world of fluctuations, and our emotions are always fluctuating. Our sensory modalities are like impelling us to accept one thing or reject that same thing the next moment. And therefore, if we have some higher understanding of the nature of the mind, that will help us to a very great degree. And so, for us to understand change in a nutshell, we have to understand how the mind is constantly changing. The mind is constantly accepting initiatives from the senses. And the senses are being bombarded by so many energies in the universe. And therefore, we need something tangible to be able to help us to grow. Change could destroy us, or change could enable us to grow in a tremendous way. The whole idea is that when there is a change, it creates an opportunity for the high-profile, intelligent person to be able to take advantage and see how they can grow. For someone who is controlled or under the auspices of the unruly mind, change can just demoralize the person. And therefore, if we have a better understanding of how to tame the mind, that will help us to a great degree in terms of accepting change, a change that we can, that probably is inevitable. For instance, death is inevitable. You're losing someone we love is inevitable. And so we should prepare our minds for the worst scenario. We don't pray for the worst scenario, but if that happens, it's not unexpected. If we have that type of mindset and approach to everyday reality, we can be very stable whatever that transpires in our lives.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. Very deep, but absolutely amazing. And I'm sure everyone right now, they appreciate all of these beautiful words that have so much meaning, and they can implement it into their lives because, as you said, change is there, it's inevitable, and it's what we make of it. It can be good for us or it can be bad.